This is the KnightShift podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF night sports. The KnightShift starts now.
And welcome, everybody, to the KnightShift postgame. Eric Lopez here with you back in Orlando as UCF loses to Florida 24-13. We have a cast of thousands coming up. We'll take your questions and comments. Definitely will need you tonight for that as we wait till Kyle Nash and Don Strouble and Bryson Turner, they're all in Gainesville on this sort of wild Saturday, as it turns out, in college football, except here in Gainesville. The Knights lose their second in a row, 24-13. We'll take your comments. We'll take your questions. Coming up on the program, not a pretty game to say the least. We'll break it down. What does this mean for UCF? Where do they go from here after such a disappointing loss against the Florida Gators? 24-13. And again, send your comments and questions. You can, of course, follow us on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you follow that there and subscribe and give us a thumbs up, as well as, of course, on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, X as they call it, and as well as on Facebook, is where we're on right now, on Facebook and YouTube. And certainly, again, we'll take your questions. I'm sure many of you have many comments and questions. We certainly look forward to seeing that down the road. Here's my thoughts. This was not a pretty game. It's a game that it's more of a head scratcher, disappointing, bad first half, got outplayed, and it's disappointing, and we're gonna get a lot of negative comments. I have a feeling, and I will address some of your comments. Let out your frustrations here. I promise you, I'm as disappointed as you all are. So believe me on that. But I'm still kind of baffled. I took an extra few minutes to kind of digest what I just saw. And unfortunately, the first half, Florida offensively did whatever they wanted against UCF. Graham Mertz was on fire. Lagway really wasn't a big factor. He made one big throw, and that was it. But it was Florida that kind of set the tone in the first half. And then UCF offensively just couldn't get anything going against the Florida defense that has struggled all season long. And it's just still kind of head scratching. I'm looking at these stats for those that might be watching it. Graham Mertz, 19 of 23. Think about that. 19 of 23. For a $179 and a touchdown. While DJ Lagway 4 for 4. Gator quarterbacks were 23 for 27. Mertz and Lagway were combined 23 for 27. That's insane. Whereas KJ Jefferson was just 12 of 22 with a $165, and of course threw that interception at the end. RJ Harvey, 16 carries, 75 yards and a touchdown. Florida ran for 130 yards, 32 carries. UCF, 40 carries for 108 yards, 2.7 a carry. Really, after that first drive by UCF, they just couldn't get anything on the ground going of substance, in my opinion. And then, the second half, UCF had a couple nice drives, but it took forever. And I think the thing that is just perplexing, and I'm sure it was perplexing to a lot of you watching, was just so slow, the offense. And how it took forever to get plays and drives, when you're down, like just the emphasis on that was just head scratching. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, they do, we are down by big scores. So we'll see what happens there. So let's read I'm going to read some of the comments because Kyle and Don are in the postgame presser right now. Who knows how long that'll take? Then they will join us following that for what was said on the postgame and much more. So let's go. Let me read some of the comments here. Kara Kruger Lawson chiming in. Make KJ Jefferson make sense? It's a great question, great comment. Kara, I'm with you. I'm baffled as you are. I don't really understand it. I wrote a column. I thought this was the perfect fit for this offense. I mean, this was a guy that threw for over 8,000 yards at Arkansas, who, by the way, just knocked off Tennessee in a wacky day in the SEC. But I thought this would be a great fit. And for whatever the reason, it has not. He has, outside of, little sprints, the second half, TCU, he was really good. He made some nice throws in the second half in this game. But again, you're down 3 scores going in. Again, third straight game, UCF has found themselves down 3 scores at a minimum. You can't dig yourself a hole like that. I'm with you, Kara. I don't understand what's happened there, and I don't understand why it's going so slow. I don't know, and it seems like the SEC network crew was kind of commenting on that, very critical. Was there just too much going on in the sidelines? I don't know, but it was going super slow for a team that was down 24-6. Just a head scratcher to me. Just a head scratcher to me on that. And so I'm with you. Disappointing. So I understand there's a lot of frustration about KJ. And listen, I own up to it. I was to this point was wrong, and I don't think it's all his fault. I think there's a lot going on there. I don't think they've put him in the best positions at times. But listen, I'm not going to debate if you believe this has been not a good move. This was a whiff at this point, no doubt about it. It's just fascinating to me. Roger Greenberg chiming in. Thank you for tuning in, Roger. Back-to-back losses, unacceptable. Got to turn it around against Cincinnati. Well, let's hope we play Cincinnati. The weather forecast might become a story this week. But the disappointing thing about the last 2 weeks, it's not necessarily just the losses. It's the way the losses. I mean, Colorado, in front of a big noon kickoff, in front of 4 million people, you lose by 27. Here against Florida in a game that means so much to the fan bases and everything. And you're down 3 touchdowns at the half, 24-3. You're struggling against the defense in Florida that hadn't stopped anybody this year. Miami, A&M ran all over them. That's the discouraging thing. We'll get into some of the players that have obviously redshirted, and that was obviously if you followed Black and Gold Banneret on the YouTube, on X, you saw the news there about the players that opted out or redshirted, however you want to phrase it. Certainly, I don't think helped the week, but the bottom line is you got to be ready to play with what you got. And again, I would say this. If I told you before the game that UCF would give up 24 points to Florida, who's a top 50 offense going into this game, would you take it, considering what you had seen from the UCF defense in the previous 2 games against Colorado and TCU? I think most of you would take it. I would have taken 24. I would have thought 24 points. And again, the defense was not good in the first half, and I don't think they really did a ton in the second half. Florida just didn't get the ball a lot. But UCF did get some stops. I think you would have said, hey, 24 points, we could win that game because UCF should be able to run over Florida. Florida hasn't been able to stop the run all year until tonight. And that's, again, head scratching. And right now, the blueprint is out, and that is you try to stop the UCF running game and make them beat you with the pass, and they don't have that right now at all. So I that's just the way it is. Let's see. More comments coming in. RJ Harvey cannot carry this team, even with as awesome as he is, and why we were calling run plays when the clock was ticking away in the fourth quarter. Yeah, fair question. Don't know. That's a great question. I think we're all watching that game, like letting the clock bleed, and it's like, what are we doing here? Maybe you're hoping for a big gash. They had that wheel route to RJ Harvey that worked again. That's been the one play that's worked for them this season. But outside of that, they're not an explosive offense, guys. I don't like to say that, but they're not an explosive offense. Who is your dynamic players right now in this offense? Obviously, Xavier Townsend's no longer on the team. So you have Kobe Hudson, and then if Kobe Hudson's not involved, a factor, if teams are game planning for him. You saw Pittman get involved a little bit more tonight, but Trent Whittemore caught a couple of balls. Let's go ahead and look at the UCF box score here, receiving-wise. Randy Pittman led the way with 44 yards on 3 receptions. Johnny Richardson, 5 receptions for 38 yards. Harvey caught that big wheel route for 35 yards. Pretty sure that's by far the biggest play, most explosive play of UCF tonight against Florida. Trent Whittemore, 2 receptions, 34 yards. Kobe Hudson, guys, 1 reception for 14 yards in the ball game. And that's the concerning thing right now is teams are taking away Kobe Hudson from this offense. And what we're seeing is who is there. That is for sure. That's to me the discouraging thing. You take Kobe Hudson, teams have been able to take Kobe Hudson away, and now you don't have Xavier Townsend. Now, somebody's gonna have to step up, and I don't know if they can. Maybe they can't. But we've seen this where Colorado had the skill positions, explosive plays. TCU, explosive plays. Florida had some explosive plays. We're not seeing that right now from UCF offense. I'll be curious what Gus Malzahn has to say. We'll try to carry some of that once that becomes available if we have time on that. Right now, it's just you and I and the audience, folks. I really do appreciate you all coming in. Please send the comments away. Nick chiming in. Thank you, Nick, for coming in. Another tough, brutal loss. Something needs to change fast. Well, let's start with going faster offensively. I think that's for sure a good start. Would be a nice, very good start for that to happen. So, yeah, no, there is no doubt. It is very frustrating game, to say the least. What 3-2? Florida's 3-2. What a year in the state. Florida State lost again. I'm looking at Florida's receivers. Dyke had 4 catches, 88 yards. Tank Hawkins, 7 for 60 for Tank Hawkins. He also had a carry and 4 yards. Montrell Johnson had a nice game, 10 carries, 54 yards. Jayton Ball, 9 carries, 30 yards. UCF, as I mentioned earlier, R.J. Harvey, 16 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Penny Boone, 8 carries, 42 yards. We got to see more of Penny Boone tonight. I thought that was efficient. And, especially in that opening drive of the game, that was certainly a good drive until the end where they started throwing the ball in their red zone. And the red zone continues to be an issue for UCF. Again, only settling for a field goal there. That's just frustrating. Just frustrating on many levels, to say the least. Mike Neves coming in. Thank you for tuning in here to Night Shift. Game momentum changed when we went for it on 4th and 1 on our own territory in the first quarter and didn't get it. Yeah, I was surprised about that. I was surprised. I understand you're trying to send a message. You feel like your running game should get a yard, but boy, that was a big gamble. And look, Florida just whooped them in the trenches. This is 2 weeks in a row. UCF has lost that battle in the trenches. And the bottom line is this. If they don't win the battle in the trenches, they're not going to win. They're going to struggle. This is, again, not an explosive team. Not an explosive team. And unfortunately, we're finding that out right now. Can that change? I don't know. It's a very good question. And it's like I said, folks, this is disheartening. And 2 straight losses. They're scheduled to host Cincinnati, 3:30 on Saturday. Hopefully we get to play that game. That'll be good news if we get to do that for very obvious reasons. But, it's disappointing in many ways. In a lot of ways right now. So, other comments? Fourth and 1. Yep, there are a lot of people upset about the 4th and 1. A lot of people upset about the play call. I get it. Totally get it. That's going to be under scrutiny now. I mean, it's under scrutiny a lot, and that's a fact right now. So it's very, very frustrating here. The audience is picking up, so that's a good thing. Keep again asking questions. We might be a while. Bryson was scheduled to join us, but some stuff, technical stuff. So I don't know if we will get Bryson or not. We will get Kyle and Don Strouble. What a way for him to make his debut in his first football game. His first ever football game, a loss for UCF against Florida. We'll see what he thought of the game. And Thank you. My question, is it me or does KF look slow? Yeah, no, look, things are looking slow in general on the offensive side right now. Things are looking very slow. I cannot dispute that criticism right now. That's fair comment. Just, and I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to ask Kyle about that. Why is that? Because I don't have an answer for that. Gus always used to go fast, up tempo. And listen, I'm not one of those that says, hey, let's go super fast every play like Josh Heupel did back in the day. This is kind of the opposite, complete 180 of Josh Heupel, where you're going too slow. And again, I don't know if there's just a lot going on the sidelines and they're not getting the plays. I mean, that's who knows. But your assessment is not far off. I don't disagree with it. That's very more than fair. Let's see. We've got more questions here. People chiming in. Let's see. We got. I'm not going to read that. This offense is not very good. Yeah, no, it's not good. It's not been good. Think about this. Scored 34 points the last 2 weeks against Colorado and Florida, two teams that, especially Florida, not heralded defenses, to say the least. And yet, here we are. And that was a lot of good UCF turnout, it looked like. That's what everybody was saying, but we could barely hear it because what was there to cheer about? Yeah, I agree. That's another comment in there. Just a head-scratching performance across the board. Just across the board. And I'm just bewildered by it. I think many of you are right now. Let's see. We got some more questions over in social media. Let's see. Would you change quarterback? Well, I mean, I think that question will certainly pick up. I don't see it happening, but certainly I can understand that question being asked. Not a good year right now for transfers in the state of Florida, unless you're Cam Ward. Yeah, and that you wonder sometimes with the portal, you hit some, you whiff some, and if you look at Florida State this year, they whiffed a lot on the portal, and it's buried their season. Whereas last year they hit on everything, it seemed like, and obviously had an undefeated season. This year did not. How would you grade the transfers for UCF so far? Has it made a big difference? I think people like Pace has made an impact defensively, although he was kind of quiet tonight. Barr has been good. I think the linebackers are a little better, much better, but yeah, you're not getting your worth for sure right now on that. So right now, let's see. We got more comments coming in. Yeah, it's amazing. Once again, no pass rush. Never felt that Mertz was in trouble. And then when, Mertz did a nice job getting some runs, but you're right. That pass rush just not there, guys. It's just not there right now. For whatever, it just hasn't been. And you're making things harder for the secondary. It's tough to be a secondary player in the defensive back if you're defensive front, if you can't get pressure. And we just haven't seen it to this point. Just haven't seen it to this point. Not sure if we will. Now, you look at their schedule. You've got Cincinnati scheduled this Saturday. Let's hope we get to play that. Then you go to Iowa State. Host BYU's having a good year. You go to Arizona State, who I think the league just beat Kansas. They're way much improved, more than people thought. You host Arizona, who's got talented players, boy. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get easier. Comments here. Portal versus in-house development. We won with 3 stars, not winning with portal players. Listen, this is a landscape in college athletics, and I think there's a lot of debates about that. You look at it, just mentioned earlier, Florida State just not able this year. You whiffed. I think you still have to develop players. You can't keep going to the well in the portal because you're going to whiff sometimes. Buyer beware, as they all like to say. And I don't think that just holds to UCF. I think that holds to a lot of teams in general. And I can you build chemistry? Can you develop that bond when you have so many players from different teams coming in versus, hey, let's put a group together and grow together? It's a great question. Listen, I don't think, though, you want to be Dabo Swinney, who refuses to use the transfer portal, though this year looks like he's got a pretty good team. They only have the one loss to Georgia. But overall, I think I think there's a fine line there. There could be a little mixture where you add some pieces, but you still have a core of recruits. And there's that balancing act. And UCF obviously went in this year when RJ Harvey decided to come back. Went in on an experienced veteran quarterback, KJ Jefferson, who had produced big numbers at Arkansas. Didn't have a good year last year at Arkansas. That was kind of written off to, hey, he was running a pro set offense with Dan Enos as the offense coordinator at Arkansas. This is a perfect fit for the Gus offense, and it has not worked out. And that's the disappointing thing. I am disappointed. I take ownership. I thought this would be a perfect fit. I'm baffled. I'm really baffled. And listen, got it wrong right now to this point. Can this be turned around? Hard to say. I mean, you better win the Cincinnati game. If you play that game, if that game gets played, let's hope that, Mother Nature has different ideas, whatever, doesn't come towards Central Florida. But because I think if that happens, I don't think we're going to play a football game. But again, that's later in the week. But assuming that game gets played, you must win that game. You must. That's a must win, or your season comes to an end if it's not already. And get that mojo back. That's about the only positive you have, I think, from tonight's game is that this was not a conference loss. But what right now? There's not a lot to go with that gives you confidence this team can compete in the Big 12, except for the fact this conference is wide open. Oklahoma State lost again today, lost to, I believe, West Virginia. So it's a wide open league. But, man, oh, man. It's a journey, man. It's very good questions, though. See what the mindset is. But what's the feeling, everybody? Do you feel can you feel this team can turn it around, or have you lost faith? And I think that's a question that's going to be asked around pretty much for a while here. I don't think this is going to sit very well with a lot of people. All right, I'm back. I'm back here. Sorry about it. We had a technical issue there, but we're back now. Gotta love live programming. And look who's back. Bail me out. Kyle Nash and Strouble. Live programming, people. Just decide lightning strikes and lose power for 3 minutes. That's
oh my goodness.
That's the way the night went, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, I can't blame you for thinking so, but we're gonna power through. Eric, what have we seen so far on the show, man? Before he went out.
Yeah, that was the first in my history of the show, but maybe that's the way this game. It's fitting for the way that UCF played tonight. What was you guys' thoughts? Slow start, once again down 3 scores against Florida, who we keep making every quarterback look good every week. It seems like, and UCF offensively couldn't do much against one of the worst defense that has struggled all year.
Yeah, so I'll say this about the offense, and I asked Gus about this too. I mentioned something. I used the word balance when I asked the question. Production-wise, Coach was right that there was balance for what little offense there was, but they seem to be ready for R.J. Harvey. Anybody who plays UCF is going to be at this point. There's not any secrets kept when he comes to him, and they need another dimension, and I don't think that they found that yet, Eric. And listen, when they attempted to find another dimension, then at that point, KJ Jefferson, Gus said it. He's got to be protected better. We got to protect him better was exactly what Gus said for that. And listen, after that point, I needed no more questions. That was exactly what I saw on the field myself.
Maybe also might want to help if the offense would run, not in a pace, like a snail.
Well,
was that brought up in the postgame?
It was, and actually, somebody asked Trent Winmore about that particular thing as well, and his response was they kind of killed their own urgency and momentum. There was a lot of sacks late. There was some incompletions, was what he said. And when you're ending up with a 3rd and long, and you need to find the right play to keep a drive alive, it kind of delays your ability to prepare. You don't want to just, the way he put it, he said that you don't want to just run up to the line like a chicken with your head cut off and, just throw whatever play out there, because then you miss 3rd down, and then where are you? But yeah, I saw some of the complaints with the urgency late. I can't say I necessarily disagree with them, but there's some validity what Trent said there. I'm not going to, hearken to what degree there was lacking urgency versus them killing themselves. Neither is a great scenario, obviously, Eric.
Don, this was your first ever college football game. You've seen in person, covered in person. I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, it was a special experience. I mean, it was a crazy environment here in the Swamp. To be honest, it makes me that much more excited to eventually get into our home stadium and cover a game and see what that environment's like in person. But at the end of the day, this was a physical SEC team that was hungry for a win, and UCF didn't bring the same physicality. The first half was highlighted by a bunch of missed tackles, and even when they shored things up defensively in the second half, the offensive production wasn't there. This is the second week in a row that they were 30% on 3rd down conversions, and kind of just to piggyback. Oh, sorry.
Keep going.
Got a tractor here. To kind of piggyback off of what Kyle said, there needs to be another dimension. They need to find a second gear beyond RJ in the run game. I mean, Kobe Hudson's been pretty much a non-factor the past 2 weeks after that strong outing at TCU, and they need to be better there. But to digress back to your question, yes, I mean, it's quite a special experience for this to be my first college football game attending in person, to have been a credentialed media member and covering it as part of the Banneret.
And he's going to be ready to go for Edition Financial Arena sooner than later here, Eric Lopez. Let the world know.
Yeah.
Let's hope. We need weather to get better later in the week. So there's a couple of things the fans have brought up in the chats here I want to bring up to you guys. The 4th and 1, going for it in the first quarter, deep in their side of the field, not deep in their territory, but just deciding to go for it. Deciding to go for it, 4th and 1, got shut down. Your reaction to that decision?
I love the decision. I hate the play call. But listen, there's a reason why you get running backs involved and you recruit guys that are built kind of like bowling balls, right? Stout players that are shorter, so they're harder to find and can find creases. KJ Jefferson is not that. Okay, you're going to find him. He's not going to find those little spaces. And granted, I did kind of like the hole that he chose, but then it ended up getting taken up by a tight end pulling inside to try to help block when it was already blowed up. there were just some bad instincts there too. At the end of the day, like I said, I don't mind the play call. Gus is aggressive. This is how this team has gotten better in its life recently under his tenure, is by being aggressive. Did not like the play call, and frankly, especially when you already saw signs that the offensive line was struggling against an SEC front.
I wanted to ask you that, Kyle. Just read my mind. What you think of the battle in the trenches? It looked like UCF lost that again for the second week in a row. This time by a Florida team, especially a defensive line of Florida that has been much maligned and has been gashed all year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily speak for. Well, I can. We're not there right now. Let's stay on the question. We're talking about the offensive line, and Coach said it anyway better than I could by saying the issues that KJ Jefferson had was because we couldn't protect him. His words, not mine.
Obviously, there was some news that came out prior to the game. You guys tweeted about it. If that's why you follow us on X, you got to see the news, the list of players that have decided to redshirt for UCF, highlighted by Xavier Townsend. That had been rumored all week. He announced it, I think, in his Instagram or whatever. Colton Boomer out with an injury. That's why you saw Grant Reddick kick. Just take us a little bit behind that story. How did finally, I guess, did UCF come out with an announcement? Is that how it came out? And then was Gus asked about it after game? Just tell us, and for those that may have missed it, just kind of just break it down for us.
Yeah, shortly before kickoff, they did release it. We also tweeted out there on the Black and Gold Banneret Twitter account. Bing! So there's that. But the bing is real, even on the field, Don. Just saying.
No, it's a great plug.
But with all that being said, they did address it. Coach Malzahn, he was asked directly if he was disappointed, but like his response was, "I am, of course, because he formed a bond with these guys. He wanted to go and coach these guys." But he's also mentioning, hey, this is college football. This is what you've come to expect. And whether it was Coach saying it, Trent Whittemore, or Quadric Bullet, who talked to us after the game, all of them had the same sentiment that it's next man up. We wish these guys well. May the force be with you. But from Trent's perspective, the special teams, the team that got affected in two different ways, I might add, Eric Lopez, with both Colton Boomer being out and X. See, this is why we can't say we're on X, because people might get confused with me and Xavier Townsend. I guess that problem's done now, but it was a thing at the time. But the punchline is, with your kicker and your punt returner both being replaced or different at this point, you got to try to just move on. And I feel like they did a relatively good job of that on the few times they did punt. And give the Gators punt coverage credit. They were fair catches both times, so they had that. Although, and after Reddick kicked the first field goal, they did have a good stop on a kickoff inside the 10. You can't front on that. I don't know if you're asking a question, Eric. You're still muted, brother.
Well, just because I'm uploading the tweet there. William Wells, West Dorsey, Caven Call, Xavier Townsend, Brian Threats are the guys that are redshirting and entering the portal. Colton Boomer is injured. That was the tweet at 6:24 Eastern on UCF Banneret _SBN. That's when it came out there. Mike with a comment question. Were we oversold? Flat out question about this team. A lot of people right now feel that way.
Certainly looks that way, doesn't it? Certainly looks that way, especially in the trenches, right? And I did ask questions of Herb Hand in Media Day going back. You remember this, Eric? Going back to August when we held that. And, I was asking about them about continuing to build on last year's success on the offensive line. And now I would make the argument that they were tested more in these two games. But considering the fact that they had a healthy starting quarterback compared to the past, there's no excuse. It's time to get past that.
But, and this is for both of you, what did you see from the defensive side of the ball? Florida seemed to have her way with them in the first half, but, Florida didn't get the ball much in the second half. It was a weird second half because it was moving. A lot of long drives in this game. Pretty efficient start there. But UCF kept them in the game defensively. What are you guys' overall thoughts on the defense here?
Yeah, I think, I like to see the defensive front getting more quarterback pressure. It didn't translate to sacks in this game, but they did look a little better in terms of their aggression of punching through that whole line. And the second half, they held the Gators to zip. I mean, they didn't score at all in the second half. This loss was just once again highlighted by an anemic offense. But defensively, I think that there are positive takeaways. But once again, you have to finish tackles. You have to ramp up your physicality, and you have to finish tackles because I would like to see the stats on like yards through contact for the Gators following this matchup, because that was a brutal first half. I mean, it's like all of UCF's defensive players were just covered in butter or something. Like, they just could not wrap them up. They couldn't bring them down.
I'll say this much for the defense, because Don has a point that there were certain tackles that were missed. There was good swarm tackling. There were a couple times when a tackle or even two would miss, and there would be a third, fourth guy. There was good team defense on a lot of plays to eventually get guys down. But I think the things that shout themselves out are the one-on-one tackle failures. And I asked Quadric Bullock about this directly in the press conference just got out of, Eric. I asked him if there was too much of a concentration on making that tackle versus, just trying to concentrate on wrapping up and getting him down. And his answer to me was he felt like they need to concentrate more on fundamentals, which goes hand in hand with that sentiment.
It's funny. We're talking fundamentals. 5 games into the year now, guys. That's interesting comments there. What we mentioned, obviously, the Kobe Hudson being shut down. What did you see there that Kobe just couldn't get anything going there between KJ and Kobe? And then who is going to be that X guy that's going to step up? Obviously no more Xavier Townsend. We saw Trent Whittemore return punts, which I thought was interesting. Whittemore caught a ball or two. Pittman, they look like they try to get him a little bit more involved. Where does UCF find explosive plays here, guys?
I mean, that is the question. I asked Gus about that, and I think they're still kind of trying to figure that out. To your point, I know 5 games in, I get it. But from here, listen, I have to be honest. I really felt like he would be expecting to have Xavier Townsend to kind of balance that big play load. And there were a couple of those that happened in Colorado. Granted, they were canceled by turnovers, but that's a separate conversation we had last week on the Night Shift here on the Black and Gold Banner YouTube channel. Bing! But from where I sit, Eric, those answers aren't clear yet, and they need to be, obviously. Now, and to Gus's credit, a question was asked about the offensive line struggling the past 2 weeks. What is it that's changed about the offensive line? His answer is the one I would have given, the opponent. And it's about the fact that they've faced more stout lines. Listen, we've made the joke about Sonny Dykes and his refusal to run the football offensively. We've made the jokes that, these opening 2 games were basically preseason games and playing an FCS and a most recently FCS school for the first 2 weeks, and then beating a TCU team that just lost to Houston. So, you got your 3-2, and your record says you're not dead yet, technically. Bill Parcells tells us you are what your record says you are, right? But the X's and O's aren't there, to your point, Eric Lopez.
So how do you turn this around if you're Gus Malzahn right now?
That's the question, right? Yeah. I think that it really just comes back to they need to stop being so one-dimensional. The reliance on R.J. Harvey is exhausted its course. They need to find some sort of passing game. I mean, Kobe was entirely non-existent in the first half. I believe in the second half he had 3 straight targets to him, and he had a couple of catches, but
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it really just comes down to finding some offense through the air. I mean, there was even several times where QB draws were called, and KJ just wasn't breaking the line of scrimmage even. And so I think that there's just an anemia within this offense that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed fast, or else this team might be looking at another losing season.
Oh, that's not going to sit well with people. Here's a comment, guys. Kai, I want your thoughts on this. Portal versus in-house development. We won with 3 stars, not winning with portal players. That was from a Mike Neves earlier. Listen, that's going to be we all know, very heavy portal now in college athletics. But what's your thoughts on this here? You see something there with the portal? I mean, have you seen other teams trying to whiff in the portal? Sometimes have to hit. What do you make any correlations there?
I mean, listen. First of all, I like the question. The problem is it's not as simple as this or that, right? UCF is still in that transition period to get out of the G5. They're 2 years removed from it. In order to elevate their roster to something that could even compete, they had to go to the transfer portal. And what I think people keep forgetting, Eric Lopez, is that if a player, like let's say a Thomas Constellanos, gets bought by a blue blood program, no matter how well he is or isn't doing there, by the way, there's nothing UCF today in their current fiscal setup can do to compete. The collective is there and trying to raise money at a regular basis, but at day's end, Eric, if you develop talent like Tommy was, and then they get bought, and I'm just using Castellanos as an example. It could be happening other places, by the way. There's nothing you can really do with that. That's why when the question of, hey, you need to pull KJ out, you really can't, because your other guys aren't ready to go yet, the guys you are still trying to develop.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting question. And it's funny you bring that up, but what's frustrating, I think, some Knight fans here is people are like talking like SMU beat Louisville today. SMU is undefeated right now in the ACC. Depending on, and I'm looking at my back here, Miami's losing to Cal. SMU and Clemson might be the top teams in the ACC, and this is SMU's first year from coming over to the American. BYU, top 25 ranking before UCF. I think that's where some of the frustration right now is coming from the fan base.
Well, and that's fine. BYU also has a lot more money at their disposal, and that's the part they're leaving out. If you want to count SMU dominating the ACC, go for it. I would love to see UCF in the ACC and see what happens there, Eric Lopez. Give me a break. We're talking about Syracuse, who needed overtime to beat UNLV. Now, granted, in UNLV's defense also, they've beaten some Big 12 teams, right? So it's
not like the Big 12 is a powerhouse right now.
Right, exactly. I'll say this, though. Because there's a lot of unrest, still trying to find where teams settle. And I love the part where a former American team, by the way, is wiping the floor with the ACC. You've heard me say it on this show, Eric Lopez, that the American, as it was formed before UCF and company moved, was better than the ACC. So you want me to act surprised that SMU's beating them? But I digress. I think a lot of that, again, like Coach said about why they aren't, the line isn't performing with SMU, it's the same thing. It's the opponents they've beat. Can SMU do that against Clemson? I don't think so. I'd love to see it. Don't get it twisted.
No, I agree. I think Clemson might be the best team in the ACC. I think they're going to be in the playoff.
But doesn't that say a butt ton that Clemson's your best team?
I mean, who's the best team in the Big 12 right now?
You would think Utah when Rising's healthy, but that's another conversation.
Is he ever going to be healthy? Oklahoma State's lost their third in a row. Oak State lost their third in a row today to West Virginia. And I think that's what's adding to frustration here is it's a wide open Big 12.
Yeah.
And you looked at it, right? Favorable schedule. Now listen, I guess if there's a positive tonight, this was a non-conference game. That's right. Correct. That's how you're going to sell it. But the concerning thing is you've now been outplayed. You could argue 10 of the last 12 quarters, maybe 11 of the 12, however you want to judge the TCU game, which is not aged well, guys. Right? So that's the concern, but it's a wide open league.
And I think that's kind of the point made is, Vandy beat Alabama, for goodness sake. Like, the parity in college football has exposed itself. But, and that's, I mean, if that's, I think if you're asking for a sales pitch from the program, that's what they would give you. Hell, Trent Whittemore said as much, alluding to an upset happening in the SEC. He didn't dare evoke names, and I don't blame him for that. But, I mean, some of these teams on here that are on the remaining schedule are beatable. The Cincinnati's, your favorite Big 12 team, Cincinnati, right, Eric Lopez? So, there's an opportunity to kind of get things together, to see what's working, to maybe learn some things while still being able to get a win or two. And then, at that point, you've got to kind of see what happens. Granted, I'm still very scared of what Black Friday will look like for UCF playing Utah. Cam Rising will have. What
about? Listen, Arizona State beat Kansas tonight. They're way improved. I mean, you're talking about a team that has benefited from the portal. Coach Dillingham has built that up at Arizona State. You got to go all the way to Tempe. That's not going to be easy in November. Arizona beat Utah in Utah. They have the other great receiver, McMillan. They got a great quarterback. That won't be easy. Got to go to Iowa State in a couple of weeks. I mean,
I'm most worried.
This was supposed to be the soft part of the schedule. West Virginia, yeah. Tough, right. Frustrating. A lot of frustration right now along with people here. People upset, obviously, about the offense and the pace. Like, where was the urgency in the second half? That's a lot of comments on.
Yeah, and there was some of that present, but again, I think the best point made by Trent Whittemore is you have a 3rd and long, you have to convert. That's a killer. You have a sack that happens, getting back to the line and being urgent and having high tempo and getting back together, not the simplest thing. Listen, I don't disagree with the frustration. I'm just telling you another way to look at it, and you don't have to agree with me. I am just here for your sports fan therapy at this point, Eric Lopez.
Don, what was your big takeaway from the post-game presser that either Gus said or maybe one of the players? What stood out to you?
I think that Gus is still at least to the press room showing his confidence, and he's trying to keep a level-headed approach. It seems like he was kind of he had a similar stoicism that he did in Monday's presser after the Colorado loss. But who knows what things look like in that locker room, Who knows how the team is being galvanized and what they're going to do moving forward. But Cincinnati, it's a must-win game. I mean, you cannot drop a 3rd in a row, especially when they've had a lack of stability highlighted by the losses in the transfer portal. And I know that Gus said that this is college football now, but I mean, UCF they're in a weird predicament at the moment. And so Gus didn't really say anything that stood out to me, nothing out of the ordinary, but it's going to be interesting to see how he backs up his quotes that he provided us with.
Bob Ed here was mentioned earlier, make KJ Jefferson make sense. Who wants to take that?
Way? Exactly.
Just his performance overall. People had high expectations, myself included.
Yeah. No,
not great.
If you can't protect the dude, he can't throw the football. And I think that's kind of a part. I allude to this in more detail a bit on Night Class here, which will drop shortly after this show on blackandgoldbanneret.com. But the element there is I kind of feel like they keep asking KJ to make tight window throws, but I don't think that's his game. I think his game is throwing the ball up to give a receiver a good shot at taking on a one-on-one. And I didn't see a whole lot of that. Don made the point earlier that towards the end of the half, they took a couple shots. Now, granted, one of them was not the right ball. It wasn't delivered perfectly. But later on, when the receivers had the opportunity to come back because the Gators were trying to protect the end zone, he took advantage of those, which one could say were higher percentage throws. But this whole thing where they get to the red zone and Gus and company start calling plays with obvious red zone panic where you're asking KJ to make these throws, I think that's the one thing I'm truly critical of.
Expand on that. Well, is it just the fact that are you talking about the opening drive where they ran the ball up and down that drive and then they started throwing the ball as they got to the red zone? Is that an example where you're talking about?
That's exactly it. That's perfectly correct, Eric Lopez. At least they had RJ Harvey on the field this time. I'll give them that much credit. But just the demand to start throwing the ball there in that spot. You try it once to catch him off guard. You want to try to run a pass out of a particular formation to fool him. I get it. But I think we were running into that same issue we were talking about against Colorado, but maybe to a lesser extent, Eric Lopez. The skill position depth ain't there right
now. More comments about the slowness of the offense. Some people are asking, do you think there is too much? Is it too much for Gus to handle right now? Is there too much on the sidelines? Are plays not being out there quick enough? How do you explain the slowness? Again, that's become a popular thing tonight.
Yeah, listen, I don't have all the answers for that yet. That's going to be something, we're going to have to wait to kind of poke the holes in that on Monday and see what they can tell us there. But as far as the slowness, do I think it's more than Gus can handle? I'm not there yet. I think there's an element of it where they're being down is big. Listen, I get it was air quotes only 28-13. Eric, I think you'll agree. The score did not reflect the domination the Gators had.
24-13. 24-13.
What'd I say?
You said 28. Don't give him 40.
It felt like 48. Let's be real, guys. I know I'm playing the part of Eric Lopez tonight, but with that, it felt like it was a lot more dominant than 24-13.
Yeah, you never felt that UCF was in the game. And they could say
and talking to my friend Lauren from Gator Bait, who I was on the show with, his show Tuesday night, he had said himself that if they get up big to that point, that Coach Billy Napier would call the dogs off, and I think we saw an element of that.
Yeah, he kind of kept UCF in the game at times there, I thought, a little conservative, but like you said, called the dog there. I guess Billy Napier's still employed. Remember a couple of night shifts ago where people were saying he's going to get fired, and what happened to that?
I mean, at the end of the day, listen, I'm pretty sure that they're going to at least let him finish the year. Whether he stays there in 25, well, that's a separate conversation for the national and Gator media to work out.
What else? Give me your impressions, Don. What was the press box like, guys? Here, and then we'll let you go after that. But you got still a lot of people tuning in. Appreciate that, even though we had a little technical glitch with myself there. But what was the press box like? The
press box was awesome. I mean, it really encapsulated the environment. You had a great view of everything. I loved how it was an open environment. Yes. It was a beautiful night in Gainesville. It felt like low 70s with a breeze, and it really highlighted the energy of this crowd. And that was one thing that Gus talked about in his opening statement, was that it was loud in here.
Yeah.
And that was highlighted by some of the penalties for UCF. I think that, they had trouble hearing some of the cadences or the snap counts. And I mean, I tell you what, I lost a little bit of hearing, but it was totally worth it.
You're in trouble with a traveling musician.
Yeah.
Has lost more hearing, Eric Lopez.
Several times louder than most concerts I've played, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, no, it was a great environment. I mean, the food was good. It was really comfortable to get in and out of.
Oh, you mentioned the spread. Here comes Lopez.
What is it? What was it? What was it?
I couldn't have most of it, Elo, because I'm a vegan, but you would have enjoyed it.
Just like Jordan,
everyone else would have.
Just like Jordan Johnson used to be, right, Eric? There you go.
What was it? What did Florida give out there?
Well, they did have pulled pork sandwiches, and they had green beans, which he couldn't have because they had bacon in it. And then I was about to say, have some macaroni and cheese. But wait, the vegan can't have cheese. So there you go. But
that salad and that bag of Lay's, it held me over. It did the job.
Can never go wrong with that. You're going to have to figure that out. Media food, not the most healthiest places to be at.
Yeah.
All
right. There you go. All right, so we turn the page to Cincinnati. You mentioned it's a must-win.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're aware as we're doing this live, there's a potential hurricane that coming right at us later this week. Hopefully not. Maybe go south of us. Who knows? But that could impact whether that game gets played. Let's just assume the game gets played. We'll all be happy about that because that means things went okay in Central Florida.
Right.
What does this team have to do to get a win? Period. What do you got to do? Forget the opponent. I don't even care about the opponent because to me, this has got to be an internal self-check here, isn't it, Kyle? Like, yes, there's some things that the opponents are doing, but the vibe is just off at least from afar. I don't know if you sense anything as far as just the vibe is off as far as the on the field product right now.
It felt odd. I'll agree with that, Eric. It felt different somehow tonight. I'm with you on that, and just from a purely emotional standpoint. But I'll give you the answer that Gus Malzahn gave me when I asked him about more balance. We need to run the football better. And it all starts, if I'm hearing the analyst in me, which, if you think I'm just some arrogant guy talking football or whatever, with my championship ring here, whatever. But if I hear both protection problems and we got to run the football more, that means something's missing. You're missing an element to be able to run the football more. But to your point, Eric Lopez, last year, the fake Big 12 team that is Cincinnati, not well developed in the trenches. UCF won the football game, albeit in a close matchup, with a backup quarterback, I think, at the time, if I'm mistaken. I don't remember if John Rice played that game or not, but the punchline.
No, he did. I think he did.
He did?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He came back.
So the punchline is, though, at that point, in a situation where you don't have an SEC line, you don't have an improving Colorado line, which to me, I'll be honest, that part of it was more confusing for me in Colorado than here. Here it makes sense. It's an SEC team, whatever. I'm still kind of figuring out, and maybe they are, maybe that's the issue. They're still figuring out from Colorado what to do. And some of the same elements from the Colorado game were used against them here, underneath routes in the passing game, things like that. They got to figure a way to handle that.
Yeah, it's just head scratching. It's just head scratching. I think, honestly, a lot of people are just like that right now. That's really what it is.
They can't be blamed, Eric Lopez. I'll put it that way.
Well, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what was the night turnout in the stadium? It seemed like it was a good turnout.
90,000 plus is what they.
Well, that was overall. But how many?
As far as the crowd, it sounded like it was 30 to 50%. Like it got loud. But in particular, during the national anthem, where it gave through the night, shocked people. They were not ready for that here in Gator Nation, and here we were. Right. Obviously. Yeah. It quieted down throughout the game for reasons obvious. But
well, the opening drive, Florida, that opening drive for Florida set the tone, man. Remember, and we talked about it previewing the game. You got to get off to a good start. If you can get off to a good start, man, that place could turn negative on them. But it was the opposite. Florida got off to a great start, and those fans really were into it. That's the one thing. You can question a lot of things about those Gator fans, but they are loyal and they're passionate about their football. They get ticked off when it's bad, and they'll rip the coach and prove them. They were into this game. They didn't treat UCF like, oh, this is Stanford or any of that stuff. But that opening drive, it took forever. It was excellent drive there. Set the tone, I thought. And then UCF did have a good drive responding, but they settled for the field goal. And then Florida scored. The tone was set early. And you can't, again, you're down by 3 scores again. 3 straight games.
They'll get another shot in 2030, right, Eric?
Oh, jeez. Let's hope. I don't know. We'll see. It's just crazy here. Just crazy. All right, final thoughts, boys. You know you've had a long day and night, and I don't know what your plans are. You're probably staying over, but give me your final thoughts here if you leave the Swamp and the Knights have lost 2 in a row.
Well, like I said, great environment. Happy to be a part of it. Wish we could have seen a Knights victory. They're facing some adversity, but they got to get through it. We're going to see what happens next week. Obviously, this was the end of non-conference play, and they got pushed around by an SEC team that has started out average this year, but they didn't play like it. They were playing like the national championship teams of old here in the Swamp. And
or at least looked like it.
At least looked like it, yeah. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. It's another week. We're in October, and this is a fast-moving season, and this Knights team is going to have to adapt quickly, and they're going to have to look at themselves philosophically and try and do something with their identity to start producing some W's.
Listen, I can't put it any different than this, Eric Lopez, beyond the other stuff I've already said. I know that Gus Malzahn has said to me time and again throughout these seasons, it's those teams that can continue to get better as the season goes on that are the great teams. And they need to do that if they want to at least be good.
But there's no time. I mean, you go right back with Cincinnati. Cincinnati a must-win? Must-win?
It certainly feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Folks, that's Kyle Nash. Don Strouble. They are from there in the Swamp. Knights, unfortunately, losing 24-13. Don didn't get run over by any of those tractor trailers. What the heck was going on behind you? There was a lot of vehicles there. What's going on?
The post-game crew's got stuff to do, man.
Is this going to be the future home of the Jaguars for a year?
Oh, it's Orlando, right, Eric?
All right, check out Kyle Nash. He'll have his night class recap there on the blackandgoldbannerette.com. They'll have the social media. They'll have all the post-game stuff on our YouTube channel. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you tolerating me through my technical glitches, and thank you for the great reporting.
Thank you for holding it down as the man in the van. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
All right, there you go. There's the boys joining us there. Wow. Lots. Wish there was more positive, guys. I wish there was. Unfortunately, there is not. And so that's just the way it is. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to play the Gus Malzahn postgame presser here. We're going to give you some bonus audio and video, and then we'll see. Here's Gus himself following the UCF loss, 24-13.
Okay, first of all, congratulations to the Florida Gators. They outplayed us tonight. It was loud. Their atmosphere was really good. You look at the game, we dug ourselves a hole in the first quarter. Had trouble tackling. They made some explosive plays. Offensively, 1 of 7 on third down. You're not going to be effective at all on 1 of 7 third down. And then came out of the second half. We had a good drive. We had to settle for a field goal. We got to figure out ways to get in the end zone. And then it was, our kids battled. I'm proud of our players for battling. They played extremely hard. We had some young guys that hadn't played that got in there and made some plays. But the bottom line, we just didn't get it done. So congratulations to those guys. The non-conference is over. And so now we got to play better football. I expect that we will. Looking forward to playing Cincinnati. Questions?
Coach, how would you evaluate KJ Jefferson, his play tonight, some of his decision-making, opening drive of the second half, kind of the red zone, and some other holding on the ball too long, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, he was under duress. A lot of that, in fairness to him, he was under duress. We didn't protect him very well, and I don't know how many times we were sacked, but it was quite a bit. And So it was really tough to judge, as far as that goes.
You just said that this team needs to play better football, and you expect that they will. Why do you expect that they will, based on the show?
Just knowing what I know. I mean, I know we didn't play good tonight. I know we didn't play good the night before, but we got a lot of winners in that locker room. We got to solve some things. We will solve some things. So I expect us to play better.
Guess you guys got another slow start again and find yourself in the hole deep again. What do you guys need to do to keep from that happening?
Yeah, no doubt. We got to solve that. That starts with me. We've got to figure out. Like I said, the big thing is the third downs. I mean, they had a week off. There were some new wrinkles that they scored. They got good players. We had to answer the bell offensively. We didn't answer the bell offensively to keep up with them. I was proud of our defense in the second half. I mean, they shut them out in the second half. They did a good job as far as that goes, and we just couldn't answer the bell offensively to keep up with them.
Coach, in the red zone, the lack of the production, do you think is more from play calling, the lack of execution?
It's probably all the above. It's all the above. Anytime you're not successful in red zone, there's a lot of different issues.
Coach, what do you think you should actually bring some balance to the offense? Perhaps you seem to see RJ Harvey coming.
Well, they did a good job up front. They put an extra guy in there at times, like y'all saw. But we got to be creative. I mean, we got to help our guys out and be creative, and we got to do a better job doing that. I don't know, balance-wise, we didn't have very many yards, period. But, I think one of the things we were fairly balanced, but that ain't good enough. We got to run the football. I think y'all know that. For us to be successful as we need to be, we got to put rushing yards on there, and we got to be able to throw it deep.
Coach, you said last week after the loss that you need to bust. How do you do that when facing the adversity of a 2-game losing streak?
Yeah, it's 2 games. That's the way you look at it. And we feel like crap right now, and we did last week. I expect us to play better, but we got to solve it. Like I said, we've got non-conference over. All of our goals are still intact. Like I said, we have a team that'll fight. They fight till the end. A bunch of great kids. We got some talented guys in certain positions. We got some young guys that we're going to start playing. Grant Reddick, I thought, did an unbelievable job in a tough spot. Came in there and kicked 2 field goals and kept the momentum going. We're a lot closer than that score, I'll tell you that. And so that's the reason I say that.
You got the ball back about 4.5 minutes to go in the game. It just didn't look like there was any sense of urgency. Why was there not more plays? Rather, there was only 4 plays.
Yeah. There was, we got to do a better job in some of those areas.
What has changed along the offensive line that has led to a lack of consistency in the run game the last 2 weeks?
The opponents had something to do with the D-line. Both the D-lines we played were better than the D-lines we played the first 3 weeks. But like I told you, from a coaching standpoint, we got to do a better job helping our guys. And that's what we need to do.
Let's bring it back here because we got Bryson's going to join me here for a few minutes, and he wants to got some thoughts there. That was Gus Malzahn on the presser following the Knights' loss, and just a lot of thoughts there from that standpoint. So we'll see. That's a tough loss there for the Knights. Gus Malzahn. You'll see the full post-game presser on our Black and Gold Banner 8 YouTube channel. Other places obviously have it, so that should be fun there. Let's see. So we'll see how that plays out. And tough night for UCF in a lot of levels. And actually, let's see. We might play the whole thing just to finish it up. Thought I had Bryson. We have some still technical issues there, so we're going to just keep playing more Gus.
You get a handful of players obviously chose to redshirt this year. What does that mean for you guys? When did you find out about this, and what do you have to do moving forward?
Well, we're in the new age of college football. I know we're not the only team experiencing that, but it's next man up. That's just what you got to do. And like I said, Grant Reddick was a guy that. Colton was hurt, just so everybody knows. I mean, he's been battling an ankle injury for a while. He's been fighting through and just got to the point where, he couldn't do it. So Grant got in there. We'll see if we can get Colton back. I know he'll try his best as far as that goes. Then we had some other guys decide to, opt out and go to other schools. So it's just next man up.
Is that disappointing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new age of college football. You got to adapt, and that's probably the best way to put it for me.
Okay, 3 points tonight. Did you think about replacing the quarterback and getting maybe?
No, I didn't tonight. We didn't play great around him at times. Like I said, when we don't protect him, it would have been tough on anybody.
All right, that's Gus. We'll like I said, we'll have more Gus down the road. But I want to get Bryson in. Bryson's been all over the place, so I want to get his thoughts here for a few minutes. Bryson, this was a very frustrating night on a lot of levels, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I was so mad. I will definitely admit I was sitting in section 318 for a little bit, which is like which if you're looking from like the towards the north end zone, I was like basically the furthest left in the top deck you could get. I then ended up going to visit some other members of my family that were here in another section for the second half, and we got a touchdown with RJ Harvey, and it's like, okay, maybe this would just be the TCU game all over again, and we're just scoring everything late and giving everybody heart palpitations. But no, KJ Jefferson decided to throw a pick at the end, and I was like, nope, I'm done, and I left right then. I left right then. It was an absolute awful game to watch. It's annoying because over the past decade, UCF has really built itself up, and this is the time where, like, in a way, you prove that, hey, we're here and all that, and we end up getting here, and we just turn into a pumpkin. That's the best way to kind of put it. I think in terms of Gus, I know people are all fire Gus again and all that, and I think I would view this, in my opinion, as a baseball strikeout thing. Strike one was Colorado. I actually won't count TCU because we did get a win out of that. But strike one is Colorado. This is strike two because Gus isn't out yet because this isn't a conference loss. There's still hope in the conference play department because the Big 12 is a wide open conference, and if we can learn from Colorado in this game, then we could possibly salvage the season down the road with conference play. So this game is strike two. But like Gus, coaches, it's like, you only get one more strike and then you're out in that sense. It's like I feel like that people, the anger is building. I think I can.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
And so
what was it like in the stands? What was it like in the stands? Give me an idea. How many Knight fans versus Gator fans? Was it just tough to watch? I mean, obviously UCF took it. It was slow on offense. What jumps out to you from the stands?
Well, there was a lot of Knights fans there. Like, I think what was really cool is when the national anthem. One of my favorite moments of the one of my favorite moments of the whole one of my favorite moments of the whole night was that national anthem where the UCF fans all chanted Knights because it was a lot of fans there, and I actually was surprised, like, wow, like that was like legitimately heard that, which was awesome. Like, I think that was one of the highlights of the night. There was also a big UCF chant that broke out, so that was awesome. And this was all early in the game, so I feel like the best parts of the game were the early bits where we had hope and a little bit of hope because we were moving the ball, we got the we got the kick, we had some good plays, we had the UCF chants. It really felt like UCF was kind of in the game. The UCF crowd was in it, all that, and then just the stops kept happening. DJ Lagway did what he did. I mean, the fact that we got to see both Mertz and Lagway together at the same time, like Lagway, I felt like really proved that he is an effective quarterback. I really do. Like, I don't know why they keep going with Mertz. I don't know.
Well, I think Mertz is a better, deeper passer. I mean, more of an accurate passer. I mean, he threw the ball well. I mean, then again, everybody's been throwing the ball well this year against UCF.
Yeah, fair point, because fair point. But to me, the only thing, the only unit that I felt like, Grant Reddick, by the way, solid first appearance from him.
Absolutely.
He did everything that could be asked of him. So I feel like, in all honesty, the special teams actually was pretty all right tonight, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, that was fine. But unfortunately, they dug themselves a hole again by 3 scores for the 3rd straight game. So.
No, yeah, the defense even stepped up really well.
Second half, I thought, yeah.
Like, that was great. I mean, the defensive line, honestly, I feel like the defensive line was honestly pretty good.
Second half. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think what was interesting to me is, what do you think the locker room dynamic is right now? Because part of me wonders, but obviously all of college football is probably going through this, or a lot of college football is going through this. But because of the redshirt deadline and everything like that, like that, and you have people leaving the program, what does that do to the locker room culture? I don't remember how many. I think Florida did have some players that did that, but were they as big of faces on the team as Byron Threats or Xavier Townsend? And even if there isn't as big a name, like, not having that depth there, like, I felt like you could kind of feel it, the absence.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, I asked Kyle and Don about that before you came on. I mean, it's not ideal. Obviously, that was announced before the game, all the guys that departed, the red shirt. This is part of college athletics. It's just why the sport's got some issues. The college athletics got some issues. I wonder, too, if the solution here they're going to go to is just give everybody 5 years. We might get 5 years and just scrap the red shirt thing, period. Just say you get 5 years and that's it. Maybe I think we're headed towards that. I don't think it helped. I don't think that's an excuse either, though. But it does make their secondary young. But you know what? I thought some of the young guys played well. But no, I mean, certainly that was a factor. I mean, you got to adjust. And now the question, Bison, again, Kobe Hudson shut down tonight, 1 catch. No Xavier Townsend. Pittman caught a couple of balls. Whittemore a couple of balls. But there's who is going to be, where is that explosive game going to come from offensively? It seems like their most explosive passing game play is the wheel route with R.J. Harvey.
Yeah, R.J. Harvey was, once again, great today. I mean, I feel so bad for him because it's clear that has really good talent, but unfortunately, everything else on the team is just kind of crumbling around him. I also think with the passing is how much of this is because KJ went what was KJ's final stat line again for his completions? And
I had it up. It was very, like a $160, $170, something like 13 of 22, something like that. I don't have it in front of me because I closed it, and then I had a technical issue earlier, so I'm now trying to make sure I don't have many windows open just to play it safe. But whatever happened. So, but it wasn't anything explosive.
Yeah, so I feel like in my opinion, one of the reasons why the passing is what it is, I think has to go back to KJ Jefferson because now I don't know if Kyle mentioned this with the because I will admit the offensive line looked like Swiss cheese, just looked like Swiss cheese at certain points in the game. But KJ Jefferson, I think, just once again showcased some passing issues today that I think that really shouldn't have been there. And for anyone that I guess raised concerns about KJ in the beginning, in the preseason area, this is where I bet you several of them are coming at this and be like, okay, they're feeling vindicated right now. And seeing this, it's like, oh, well, this is why everyone was kind of all worried about KJ because...
Oh, fair. Absolutely. Listen, I was optimistic. I wrote the card. I thought he'd make a big impact. So far, it hasn't worked out. I'm bummed. I'm bummed out. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, KJ, and all honest, and I think it also comes down to because this has been, I think, the unfortunately.
Now, Kyle did bring up, and Gus brought up on the post game lack of protection on KJ from the offensive line. Also contributed.
Oh yeah. I said the offensive line sometimes look like Swiss cheese on some plays. But part of the issue, because this has just been a disastrous week overall. Like this has been a bad week. Like bad week.
Well,
like,
how many more minutes? How many more minutes you got? You have a couple more minutes.
I can go however long we need. I'm in a solid place right now.
Okay, well, we're not going to go super long, but I do want to give you, because you're right, what you're alluding to, men's soccer lost tonight to West Virginia, top 10 team. Volleyball swept at Cincinnati. Women's soccer lost at West Virginia 1-0. Football losing. Yeah, it's been a tough fall for a lot of UCF sports right now.
And of course, with the issue with Kingdom NIL and that whole thing after the Colorado game, I mean, it's
tough.
And now, of course, all the money that was paid to bring KJ Jefferson in here.
Yeah, that's going to get brought up, but I mean, that's...
And this whole thing. And so I think what's interesting, and I don't know how much the other guys got into this, but I think the issue with Gus is that he is very much a set in his ways kind of guy. And that's great in some ways because you have an identity, but it's not so great in that because the definition of insanity is just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And it seems like that's what Gus is doing, because he seems like Gus is seemingly trying to, because we said before that KJ Jefferson is the closest quarterback to Cam Newton that Gus Malzahn has had since then. And so, and that team was a really, really good team. And it seems like Gus has just been trying to recreate that all of this time. But that Auburn program that he got with Cam Newton was kind of a lightning in a bottle thing. And I think what I think is changing about college football is that lightning in a bottle isn't going to work every time, in the sense you need to be able to adjust to the players that you have. And I think that's what the transfer portal maybe has done, because the transfer portal allows coaches to basically entrench themselves even more in their own identity and just shop around for players
but
their identity. But what then happens is you have these different mixes of guys that maybe might not work in certain systems because each coach is a little bit different. And
it's free agency, like free agency in pro sports. I mean, look at Tallahassee and Florida State. A year ago, they hit on a lot of the guys from the portal, right? This year, they've whiffed. They've whiffed big time. And Florida State's one of the worst teams in college football as a result of that. But, I think you got to find that right balance of, I don't think you can go full Dabo and avoid the portal, but I do think you still got to develop players and recruit players and then chip in on the recruits. I don't know, man. Look, when you lose, everything gets scrutinized.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so I think that what everyone's looking with Gus, and and I think we got to make sure, because obviously college football fans can be filled with a lot of vitriol, whether it's rightly so or not. And I think we got to make, and I'm seeing some people make this quite clear, and I do want to make it clear myself, is that I respect Gus a lot. I really do. I think he's a great guy. It's one of those. It almost feels like a football coach equivalent of Old Yeller. I think, in a way, where it's. Well,
are you banning? Are you waving the white flag on this season, or you still have optimism that they can turn it around?
But we're on strike 2. It's strike 2
for the season. Okay.
Yeah, this is strike 2. Colorado was I don't count TCU because we got to win out of that.
Well, yeah.
Colorado was strike 1. Because that was horrible, absolutely horrible. Big moment for UCF to be in, and you whiffed. You turned into a pumpkin. That's strike 1. Strike 2, another big moment like this. You laid an egg. This was a huge moment for this program, and you laid an egg. Strike 2. Strike 3 is losing another conference game, and now all of a sudden, we're probably not going to contend in the conference now.
It's Cincinnati a must-win.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. If you lose to Cincinnati, then
at home, yeah.
That's when the wheels are going to come off, I think.
Well, especially because you got to go to Iowa State after that. You still got to play BYU, who's having a good year. You got to play Arizona, although I think Arizona may have lost to Who knows? The Big 12 is wacky. The college football is wacky. Vanderbilt beat Alabama.
Wacky.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt beat Alabama today.
I watched it. I think that's why. If you were wondering why the UCF Florida game got delayed a few minutes on the kickoff, that's why. Because they had the Alabama Vanderbilt game.
Oh yeah, absolute insanity going on in college football. I think I texted this in a group chat or something like that. I said that like hell is frozen over. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. It's crazy. And the fact that Florida is like this and UCF and just oh my gosh, what a day this has been from like just a highs and lows of being a college football fan. But in the end, with this game here, it's just a bunch of like I was so excited for this game. I really was because my family and I got to do this. I got to do this, and I got to experience it with my fellow UCF fans. It was great, and then it just the game proved to just be. I honestly, if we had still lost and it was a close game, like everyone thought it was going to be, I would have still been relatively okay had there been a good game. I know,
it was not good.
It wasn't a good game, and it wasn't at all.
And no disrespect to Florida, I mean they played a good half, but it wasn't like Florida was a juggernaut.
I mean, no, and that's exactly. Florida was right for the taking. Yeah. And UCF did not take advantage of that. And the fact that they didn't, like Colorado, you can maybe use the excuse of, hey, they have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunt. You could have that excuse, and that is could very much well be the case. But this time around with Florida, they were right for the taking. They are not having a good season, and you laid an egg. This in a way, I mean, I know for one thing, I know I'm going to have to deal with the trash talk at home now from my brother.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I
am now going to have to deal with that. But imagine a lot of other UCF fans out there who have in the fandom trenches have fought so much to say we belong, that we deserve to be up in the counted among the best in the state. And they're all like, and we got a chance to prove it on the football field, just like everybody else says, like we need to do, and we blew it. And so now from now until 2030, because I think the next matchup that UCF has against Florida is 2030. So for the next 6 years, which is going to be a whole different group of people that are going to end up having to do this that matchup, we're going to end up hearing it all over again. And we can't say anything about that because, quote unquote, Gasparilla Bowl isn't going to count. And then we blew, and then 2024. That's the part where the pain comes, because we can't argue that. And so it's just going to be, unfortunately, the fandom trenches are just looking much more like we got to be in the trenches a lot longer, Eric. I mean, it sucks.
Oh, look, here's the part. If they can beat Cincinnati, hopefully we get that game in. We'll see what happens this week.
That's more longer term. That's more longer term. That's more longer term and just like in the general college football fandom space. In terms of this season, it's not over yet. It's not. It's teetering. It's teetering on the brink. But
okay, great.
It's not over. Again, think of it like baseball. We're on strike 2. Are you mad that we're on strike 2? Yeah, because you want to be able to get a hit sooner rather than later. But you're not out yet. And that's only because this isn't a conference game. If this was a conference game and then we lost this, then maybe I would be a lot madder than I am right now. But it's not. So we have a chance to turn it around and get some momentum by beating Cincinnati and then maybe something, and then if maybe be able to turn a corner and do something with those other teams, Iowa State, Arizona, whatever. And so, and the Big 12 being as wide open as it is, we could very well still have a chance because we only have one loss. We're 1-1 in Big 12 play. You can still win the Big 12 championship or make it to the Big 12 championship with those kinds of numbers. So this is a chance for the team to learn how to work, to try to fix itself, learn what went wrong, fix itself, and then get ready for the conference stretch of the season, because this is where you prove, like, okay, we know what went wrong. Now we got to fix it. Because if you can't fix it, then that's a huge indictment on this staff, because this was the moment where this was the moment where we were just supposed to feel like this is our chance to contend in the Big 12 conference right now. That's why I kept saying, like, if this year doesn't work, then you just need to quote unquote rebuild, where in the sense of, you just need to train up the young recruits and just build up some momentum to a future team down the road. And the fact that it's flopping so hard, I think that's the hard part, because we feel like there's a window of opportunity this year, because it looked like we very much had one. KJ and now the window was open and we're not getting it. And
all right, well, let's settle down. We'll see what happens next week, but certainly a disappointing night. Knights losing 24-13. Hopefully they'll play Cincinnati next Saturday at home, 3:30 on the Deuce. Then go to Iowa State. Let's hope for the best on the weather side. I can tell you're fired up, Bryson, but we can do this all night. But we got the NFL in about 12 hours. And you and I still got to talk off the air about other stuff. Other teams' problems, struggles. But for now, we'll wrap up Night Shift for now. We'll wrap up for the audience, who's been tremendous. Apologize for the technical issues earlier where I got kicked off by technology. Thanks to Kyle and Don joining us from the Swamp, literally. The stadium there was great. Thanks to Bryson, better late than never, popping in there to close the game out here on this edition of Night Shift, folks. Keep it on blackandgoldbanneret.com. where we will have Kyle Nash's night class, because he is the student of the game. That's the thing.
The night is darkness before the dawn, ladies and gentlemen. So
there you go.
Stick it out.
All right. So for Bryson Turner in Gainesville, for Kyle Nash in Gainesville, for Don Strouble in Gainesville, and for all of you, thank you all of you for tuning in. I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Night Shift. Final score from the Swamp, Florida, 24, UCF 13. Till next time, we say good night and charge on.